We are here talking about the song Even More, great anthem for our church with Jarrod, Cheryl, and Mike. Jarrod, before we dive into the song specifically, you're like the OG. You've been our worship pastor for 143 years.
Around that time,
yeah. You look great.
Talk to us a little bit about what you see God just doing. Before we dive into the song, what do you see God doing in our worship, in our music right now?
It's a good question. There's always trends in what happens within worship, and I think for a while we really saw just the idea of getting people through the doors being enough. And I think what we're experiencing now is the idea of, hey, we're getting you through the doors, but it's not even about the doors we're building. Like, church isn't even about the four walls of a building. It's about a full relationship with Christ. And even that idea of John 10:10, the idea that I came to give life and life to the fullest. Like, that's really what we're trying to aim for. Like, God has this life for us. We just so often settle for going through the motions.
That's good.
So I think I see that even in church world. It's like, checked church off my to-do list versus, hey, this is a place where you can come and transform your life, and not just about the place that you go to, but like, come learn so that you can do this yourself, really teaching us how to dive in deeper.
And that's one thing I love about these songs that you're writing and recording, and the reason why we do this is so we can take a Sunday morning experience and I can have it Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, I have it Thursday night or whatever. Like, the whole reason why we record these things is so we can bring this worship in the presence of God wherever we're at and use them as vehicles to connect with our Creator. Cheryl, I'm curious because when you guys write songs, they're mostly, you're seeking God as to what's going on in our church right now. What is God saying and through times of prayer? And so this song is no exception. Take us back to just the very beginning when you guys wrote this song. What was happening in the life of our church?
Yeah, I was just talking with the guys before saying, hey, remember, this song was written on the very end of a 28-day call to fasting and prayer for our church. And we've been in church for almost 15 years, but this was the first time that we had really charged Crosspoint Church to fast and pray for revival. A lot of thanks to Pastor Kevin Queen for introducing that. But after those 28 days, we wrote this song, and there was a prayer hour, which we do once every week. And I always take my journal as like, okay, that could be something cool for a song. And our buddy Tim Shaw, y'all know him, Titans player. He is a near and dear friend to Crosspoint, but he has unfortunately been diagnosed with ALS years ago, and he shows up obediently every Tuesday. And I remember he prayed, and through his kind of broken language said, I wrote it down, so he said, God, help us to do something different and to lean all the more unto you, to go from our path to your path. And I remember he said to lean all the more. And so when we went into the right, I just had that in my head of like, what a prayer. Like, we have begun to see glimpses of revival. We've actually seen relationships healed, marriages restored, healings, physical healings, and kind of for the first time as a congregation. But the buck doesn't stop there. Would we lean all the more onto God? Like, there are deeper levels still. And so it kind of transitioned from, it's a little bit easier to sing even more than all the more. So
we tried to make all the more work. But
you just did that so you didn't have to give Tim a writer on
the
song.
We love you, Tim.
Well, I mean, you're taking me back to that moment season in our church. I remember Pastor Kevin saying that, encouraging us that you can have as much of God as you want.
Yeah. That's right.
Like, remember, he would say, you can have as much. He's wanting to pour out his Spirit on us. And Mike, take us through that. Like, why is it important for us as a church to be singing this, or even the heart of desperation? Why is that important for us as believers?
Well, I think it's the it's kind of the mindset, right? It's that you, in good and bad ways, I guess, however you feel it, but like, you never arrive, right? Like, we are never complete until we are literally in the presence of Jesus. But to me, that's actually really hopeful, because that means, wait a second, no matter what spot I think I'm in, whether that's literally the pit, or it's like, man, God, I'm seeing you all around me. The fact that there's even more to that, it's like, I love the fact that the Lord he can never be put in a box. Like we can never in this body grasp all of who he is. There's always something around the corner. Yeah. And so for us as a church, for us to say, hey, we're seeing awesome things. God is moving in our church, but bring it on. Like we want more. There's a whole city that needs to, there's a whole world. You know what I mean? It's like it never stops. So that was the heart, is that, man, don't settle. Like what Jarrod said, let's not settle in our worship, in our prayer, in our fasting, in our seeking, so I think it's an important song to sing for years to come. Right?
Yeah, it's never irrelevant, because no matter how God shows up, we're saying there's always more of you, God. We want more of you, even more of you. Like, and I love that the idea of even more, it alludes to the fact that he is pouring out. Right. Like it's happening. That's the even part, is like, man, we're seeing you move, yet we're still desperate for more. We're still desperate for more. So it's kind of a both and. And Jarrod, I know when you're writing songs for us as a church, you're thinking about us. But I also love to know, like as a writer and a worship leader, how it personally impacts you as well. So I know you're thinking about us, like what we need to be singing, but is there parts of the song, or what part of the song resonates with you personally?
And there's a few spots that really do it for me, but even, especially at that point in time where I was at, was really getting to a spot where I was legitimately studying scripture on a more steady basis. And that included a lot of the scriptures that I thought I knew. And I remember right around this time getting to where the Israelites had been in the desert for 40 years, and they're coming up to be able to come into the promised land. And I'd never noticed this before, but we got to where two of the tribes had decided, hey, we see this area right here where we're at. You guys can go ahead and go in the promised land, but can we just have this land? And I remember reading it being like, these idiots, what in the world? And then I thought about it. I was like, this is what I do all the time. This is literally my own life. Like, I have the ability to go even further into what actually restores me and what actually keeps me full, and even to that overflowing level. But I choose what's easy, what I can see in front of me. I choose to numb myself with binge watching shows or going into my own space. But it's like, and it's not even just Jesus time. It's even the relationships that Christ has put in your life. Like, and I'm sure you see this as a father, like the idea of, I can sit down and just kind of veg for a second, or I can go out and play catch with one of my kids. Yeah. Like I can choose to go into my own hiding place, or I can choose to have a good meal with friends and family, or whatever that is. And that part really gets to me. And so I think the idea of the end of the verse is where it just keeps coming back to the idea, but there's so much more that you've promised. That for some reason really hit me in a weird spot, because it's like,
almost like we're settling.
Yeah. And God will give you that choice. I mean, this is free will. He's going to let you do what you want. He's not going to push you to do what he wants. He's giving you, this is what you can have. You can have the promised land, or you can have this thing that you see right here that's on the safe side of the river that you don't have to do anything for. Yeah. Or you can take the step of faith and actually move across and do something.
Which, if you think about the timeline of our church in this season that we wrote this song, it's literally, we had come out of arguably the desert, you know what I mean? Where we didn't have a pastor, we didn't know what was happening. And, God did provide an incredible new pastor for our church. And in theory, you could say, all right, we're good. Yeah. Like, let's not rock this boat. You know what I mean? Like we have a great thing going, but it's that heart of like, no, let's not camp out here, because now it's like, God's brought us this far. Yeah. He's faithful. Like, there's nothing to fear in that bridge. There's nothing to fear now. We've seen the way you move. Yeah. It's like, God, we've seen you. Like, you have proven yourself faithful.
And it's the scripture says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Right. It's both. It's our hope, but it's also reviewing God's faithfulness that gives us the confidence to move forward. Yeah. Cheryl, why is it so important for us as a church, as a people, to stay desperate, even if things are going well, even if things are up and to the right? Why do we have to choose the posture of desperation?
That's funny you asked that, because personally for me, I think Pastor Kevin had been around for a little over a year. We had We started to do things that were answered prayers for me. We started coming back to the fundamentals of prayer, asking our people and our staff to meet every week. We had taken the brave step to a call to fast and pray. Those things for me was like, that was the next level of things that I'd been praying for. Even individually, I'd spent the 2 years previously praying to get pregnant. And at the time we wrote the song, I was 10 weeks pregnant. So in one way, God had already answered a lot of my prayers. Yeah. But I was finding that I needed to sing it too. Like Cheryl, just because he's answered a level of prayers doesn't mean that there's not more he wants to pour out onto you and to the church. So I would say, if you are finding like, man, things are going well, like things are going up and to the right, like financially, my family's great, relationally, whatever it may be, deep calls to deep. And so there are just deeper levels of freedom. There are deeper levels of peace. There is more still. John 10:10, in abundance. I think we get so used to just living, we're good. I mean, how are you? I'm good.
Right.
What about I'm good, but I'm expecting so much more.
Right.
And that is what I feel like, even as a worshiper, when I sing this with the church, the first verse talks about being in the room. I know that there is a battle going on when we're asking people to sing with us. And so we're asking, silence the noise, like come to the Father. And then in the second verse, it talks about we've had a taste of freedom. We've seen you move before, yet still there is more. Yeah. So it hits me very personally as a worshiper, as a mom, as somebody who's seen prayers answered, but is also believing the Lord for an abundance of more.
Desperation comes easy when you're at the end of your rope.
Yeah.
But when you're experiencing the fullness of God, to choose, God, we're going to remain desperate because we know that is actually where the source of our power and our strength.
And that can be hard to do, to remain desperate when things are being answered. But it's key. It's key.
Sure. But I think that's part of what we get to do as worshipers and people that get to lead our congregation is there's almost this feeling of if we get the ball rolling, it kind of carries over. And so if you can continue to push forward, more people kind of push forward with you, and it's all of us going through it at the same time.
Together.
There's something about that momentum that you can't fake. It's not something you can design to happen. But as we're watching it happen, it's really, really cool to see it. Like it's not just little bits. It's like full steps ahead.
Yeah.
That's great. Mike, what would you hope for a song like this? Like, what would your prayer be for it?
You know, I think it's kind of the same hope that I have for all of our songs. And you said it earlier, which is that these songs aren't just written for Sunday for us to sing together. Like these songs are meant to help us encounter Jesus on a daily basis, right? For me in my life, and partly because I'm a musician, I love music, but like I can go back to seasons of my life, and those seasons are marked by songs. Yeah. Right? Like either a song that got me through something, a song that I rejoiced with, a song that I remember about when my wife went into labor. You know, whatever that
song
is.
At the roller skating rink, Amy Grant,
Come on.
Baby, you know what I'm saying?
But I mean, think about it. Music is the soundtrack to our life. And yet the thing that I love about worship is it's not passive.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is an engagement. There is something that is, that calls us to respond. And so that's the prayer, is that these songs aren't just background noise, but that they are literal words that shift things as you sing and as you listen, that you can literally experience God, you know, as you hear him.
Well, guys, I'll say just on behalf of our church, thank you for pushing us into the deeper places. Thank you for calling us deeper, because it's changing our lives. And the fact that we can have these songs now every day when we just need to, like you, Cheryl, saying, escape the chaos, the noise of the world, to shut down social media and all the fear-based stuff, but actually just say, God, I want to invite your presence. I want even more. It helps us connect no matter where we're at. If someone's struggling watching this, it works. If someone is like crushing it and they're watching,
there's more.
There's more. There's always more. So thank you for that.